For years, the name Muammar Gaddafi vanished from the headlines, and Libya sank into the chaos that Western powers called liberation. But now, something is shifting. A silent movement is rising in the heart of North Africa, and the name echoing once again across the deserts and the ruined cities is Traoré. Yes, the same captain from Burkina Faso who defied the West, resisted sanctions, and declared that Africa would no longer kneel before its former masters. But what does he have to do with Libya? And why now? Because, according to recent reports circulating on social media, including verified updates from former regime spokesman Moussa Ibrahim, the silence has finally been broken. Ibrahim Traoré, the man who vowed to return Africa's gold to its people, has reportedly expressed direct support for Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, who now re-emerges as a political figure seeking to rebuild what the West destroyed. But what does this alliance truly mean? Is it merely symbolic, or could it be the first step toward a continental awakening that could shake the entire geopolitical balance of Africa? To understand what connects these two men, a revolutionary soldier and the heir to a fallen empire, we have to go back in time. Because to grasp why Traoré and Saif Gaddafi are now converging, we must first uncover how Libya was destroyed, who profited from its fall, and why no one has managed to restore its sovereignty since. Only after the first minute does it make sense to ask the real question. How did we get here? To the point where the name Gaddafi once again sends chills through Washington and the capitals of the European Union. And perhaps the most haunting question of all, why did Traoré choose to stand beside the son of a man hunted by the West? Could this be the revenge Africa has been waiting for all along? To understand why Traoré's alliance with Gaddafi's son is shaking Africa today, we have to go back to 2011, the year the world watched Libya burn. At that time, Western media described it as a humanitarian intervention. But behind those words, something darker was happening. According to reports from the United Nations archives and later investigations published by The Guardian and Foreign Policy, the so-called intervention was never about saving lives. It was about resources, influence, and control. Libya under Muammar Gaddafi wasn't just another African country. It was one of the continent's richest nations, sitting on over 40 billion barrels of oil and hundreds of tons of gold reserves. He dreamed of creating a unified African currency backed by that gold, a direct challenge to Washington and the European Union. That single idea, according to leaked diplomatic cables later cited by France 24, terrified Paris more than anything else. Because if Africa had its own gold-backed currency, the CFA franc, controlled by France, would collapse overnight. And so, under the pretext of protecting civilians, the NATO operation began. But was it protection, or was it execution? In just 8 months, airstrikes destroyed Libya's infrastructure, toppled its government, and killed the man who once stood as the symbol of African independence. What followed was not democracy but chaos, warlords, militias, foreign mercenaries, and Western oil companies quietly dividing the spoils. Even years later, reports from Al Jazeera and BBC Africa described Libya as a fractured state, where foreign interests still pulled the strings. So the question now is simple, or maybe not. If Gaddafi's death was supposed to bring peace, why is Libya still broken? And why, after more than a decade, does his name still inspire fear in the halls of power? Perhaps because the ideology he carried, unity, sovereignty, and control over Africa's resources, never died. It merely changed hands. And now, as Captain Traoré steps onto the stage, claiming to finish what Gaddafi started, the world is watching again. But this time, the revolution might not come from Tripoli, it might come from Ouagadougou. When Ibrahim Traoré seized power in Burkina Faso, the world saw it as just another coup in West Africa. But for many across the continent, it felt like something deeper, a spiritual continuation of the struggle that leaders like Thomas Sankara and Muammar Gaddafi once began. Traoré didn't rise through the ranks with political ambitions. He rose with a conviction. His speeches, echoed across African social media, spoke not of serving foreign agendas but of freeing Africa from them. According to reports from June Afrique and Africanus, his government began cutting military and financial ties with former colonial powers, rejecting aid that came with hidden strings, and turning toward new alliances, particularly Moscow and Beijing. But what startled Washington and the European Union was not the shift in alliances itself. It was the rhetoric. Traoré openly spoke of resource nationalism, of taking back control of gold and energy projects, echoing Gaddafi's defiant tone from decades earlier. And as he gained followers, a pattern began to emerge. The same ideals Gaddafi had died defending were now reappearing, wrapped in a new uniform under a new flag. Meanwhile, in Libya, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi was quietly re-entering the political arena. According to statements reported by Infonet Africa and posts verified by former regime figures, he had declared his intent to restore Libya's dignity. That phrase, dignity, resonated across Africa like an unfinished chapter of history. Two leaders from two nations torn by intervention, now speaking the same language of sovereignty. But was this coordination planned, or is history repeating itself by destiny? Could it be that Traoré and Saif are converging not by strategy but by the gravitational pull of a shared mission, to complete the vision that once united Africa under a single purpose? And if that's true, who stands to lose if they succeed? Because every step they take toward unity threatens a system that for decades has profited from division. And perhaps that's why, according to regional analysts quoted by the Africa Report, foreign intelligence services have quietly begun to monitor this growing alliance. The question now is whether Traoré and Gaddafi's son will act. It's when. As Traoré and Saif al-Islam Gaddafi move closer, the world may see headlines tomorrow, but the real battle is already underway behind closed doors. According to investigations reported by Foreign Policy and The Guardian, Washington has quietly signaled concern over this alliance, fearing that a united African front controlling its own resources could destabilize markets and weaken the influence of the United States across the continent. Paris, too, has been tracking every move, knowing that any resurgence of Gaddafi-style nationalism threatens the CFA franc and France's traditional leverage over former colonies. But what exactly are they worried about? Is it merely oil and gold, or is it something deeper, the possibility of a new Pan-African economic model that bypasses Western control entirely? Analysts cited by Al Jazeera suggest that the coordination between Traoré and Saif could be the first visible step toward such a model, with Traoré's Burkina Faso serving as the ideological and logistical base, and Libya's vast reserves acting as the economic backbone. And yet, despite these risks, the two leaders move cautiously, signaling publicly with restraint while building alliances quietly across the Sahel and North Africa. Every handshake, every announcement of support carries weight far beyond the media headlines. The question that lingers is clear. Can two leaders from nations historically targeted and destabilized by foreign powers actually succeed in rewriting the rules of Africa's political and economic game? Or will Washington, Paris, and their allies intervene before their plans reach fruition? One thing is certain, this is not just about Libya. It's about the continent, its sovereignty, and the fragile balance between power, history, and ambition. And as the pieces fall into place, one must ask, when Traoré finally steps fully onto the Libyan stage, will he save Libya, or will he ignite a chain reaction that could redefine Africa forever?